Oh, wow.
I
That
had
is
been,
beautiful.
yeah, I had been waiting my whole life for someone else to make the world the way it should be, and that nobody was gonna do it except me. So when I finally realized that, I went, okay, time to wake up, time to get out there and do what I was supposed to do, right? So that is my driving purpose in life, is to make the world seem to everybody else the way it was supposed to be when I grew up.
I love that completely. That is
Thank
so
you.
awesome. That is actually really awesome.
Thank you.
I was like, it was funny because I was sitting here and I was listening to you and I was like, I kind of had my own like thoughts going on, like, wow, this is amazing. Whoa, this is awesome. So I had that moment of going, wow, this is really cool. This is why I'm friends with you.
Thank you. So your second question was, how does Youth for Human Rights and the work I do with Girls Be Girls Not Mothers, how do those help me accomplish that? And let me just give you a little bit about what Youth for Human Rights does. Youth for Human Rights is a volunteer organization. They donate educational materials. In fact, I brought some here to show you guys. These are little booklets, okay? And then there's also this massive, amazing educator kit for teachers and professors. It's got all these little tabs of activities and things like that for people of all ages. And the idea is, right, which Ryan, you'll back me up on this one. The idea is that the more you educate people, the more responsible they will be on a subject, right? It's
Definitely.
it's hard to control something. It's hard to be responsible for something if you don't know anything about it.
Oh
so
yeah, yeah.
so a
Knowledge is
sur-
definitely one of them.
yeah, exactly. So a survey was done of Americans, and it found that less than 2% of Americans can name even half of their own human rights. So that's
Oh
why
whoa.
Youth for Human Rights initiative began, because if you don't even know what your rights are, how hard is it going to be to take them away from you, right?
Yeah, I
so
love that.
so that's Youth for Human Rights, and that's one of the biggest things that I do, to really, in my mind, the moment people actually know their human rights and they know to defend them, then and only then can we get legislation passed and do the other things that are going to be necessary to actually make this world the way it should have been when I grew up.
I love that. Woo!
Thank you.
I on that point, I really do like what is it? Keeping the knowledge in and giving people knowledge, like you were saying, and really
Yeah,
making it so that it backs up the purpose and educates others on exactly what they should have in their minds and for the future and to use and apply in life. Because without that data, we don't have any knowledge of our human rights. We have no clue
that's
what's
right.
going on, kind of thing. So
That's right.
it's it's a very what is it? It's a very cool kind of deal. It's a very cool kind of mission that we're on, is to inform others of the truth and
That's
really
right.
ensure that people have the data and make it happen, kind of deal. It's
Yeah.
kind of neat. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. One of the things I like about it too is I feel like it shows a lot of respect for humankind, because we're essentially saying if you knew what rights people had, you would not violate them. And I don't know that that's always necessarily true, but it certainly puts a lot of trust into other people's hands, because rather than trying to legislate it out of existence, we're simply trying to educate it out of existence, these human rights violations. And I think that speaks a lot to what we think of people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just educate instead of harming people, like you're saying.
That's right.
Educate them instead of harming them and forcing them to do what you don't that you wouldn't want them to do, that would violate their what is it? Would violate their integrity.
That's right.
Just
Yeah.
totally. I actually, one thing to say, just based on this fact, is that I honestly believe that you're doing a job that not many people can do, and not many people can confront, and not many
Sure.
people that can actually understand it, and you're doing a job that you have to confront all the time and be certain, and
Sure.
be alert all the time. It's just amazing. So I just
Thank
wanted to say
you. Thank
that.
you. Well, my hat is certainly off to you with all of the things you've been doing to back up human rights, particularly in the religious space. I don't know of many other people or organizations that have been as strongly advocating religious freedom as you have, especially at your age. So I think it's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. My hat's off to you as well. I mean, basically, I love this friendship because we have that ability to grant ourselves some beingness and
Yeah,
really
that's
just
right.
be there for each other, which is cool.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I do definitely want to bring up this point on religious freedom. So I wanted to find out how important religious freedom is to you. And then the second one on top of that would be, how do you think someone should go about spreading awareness of religious freedom?
Okay, so first of all, the Youth for Human Rights booklets are based off of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a bill that was drafted by Eleanor Roosevelt just after World War II. So if you know anything about history at all, right, if your listeners have ever heard of World War II, you know how many violations of human rights there really were at that time. And it's not like it's gotten a whole lot better, to be totally honest. If you look at the world scene, human rights is a big issue. And a lot of the violations of human rights that occur in the name of one god or another. And I'm not here to say that anybody is right or wrong about their own religious beliefs, but let's just take a look at what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has to say on this subject, because I think you'll find that very interesting. The first one that applies is Article 18. And actually, I'm going to read you the actual article itself, not the children's version. Article 18 says everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Now, I think that's very important because one of the things that humankind, if you look at history, if you look at philosophy, if you look at ethics, all of these subjects, the ones that we consider to be the most honorable subjects, all stem from some kind of religious belief. Now, whether you're completely materialistic and you don't believe anything in religion or not, if you're, die-hard Christian, die-hard Catholic, or, Muslim, Buddhist, no matter what your religious background is or none, you still have to admit that it has a track of being a strong point for humankind. It's something our lives and our communities and our culture have often revolved around. So whether you believe or not is actually beside the point. When it comes to your human rights, you have the right to believe whatever you want. And you don't have the right, I want to point this out in Article 18 and in other articles as well, you do not have the right to insist upon the change in another's religious beliefs. Now, that's for good or for ill, right? I can believe that you are completely evil, and I have a right to continuously believe that your religion is evil, but I don't have the right to change your mind unless you want me to, right? And that's powerful, I think. And honestly, I think we've all probably violated this at one point or another, but it's something we can improve upon. And that's all really we're asking, is for people to not have an open mind. You can hold your ground all you want on any opinion you have. That's what's so incredible about this bill that Eleanor drafted, is you don't have to change your opinion of anyone. You can believe anything you want as long as you treat others with the respect of respecting their own beliefs. So that's 18. And then 19 is similarly interesting. Article 19, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. So again, it comes as a balance, right? And I think this is something your books have touched upon quite heavily, Ryan, is that balance between people have the right to believe, but I have my right to speak my opinion. And where do you find that balance? And that is something that I'm not going to say I've totally figured out either. But I do believe that when you respect the religious beliefs of others, you're going to go a lot farther. Even if I might hold an opinion, but I don't have to say it if it's harmful to others and doesn't really do any good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this.
Thank you.
You basically nailed all the points I was actually going to ask you, which is super cool. You
That's
basically
great.
nailed it down all in one. And I love how you referred to the material itself, because I think that's
Yeah.
the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I love how you touched upon the communicating about the religious beliefs.
Right.
I think that's actually vital on top of everything else as well.
Right.
But I do believe that is something that we should keep in mind when we may have, a different opinion about a religion. Maybe we have a
Right.
different, belief, and maybe we think somebody's crazy, and maybe we just think they're just nuts, and we never want to speak to them again.
Right.
There's many people on this planet that have that viewpoint, and it's good to just keep that view of human rights and to know what your
Right.
rights are and
Right.
where your rights extend and then where they don't extend to.
That's
Their
right.
limits.
And really, I said that it's hard to draw the line sometimes between the balance of those two, but really Eleanor Roosevelt and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they drew that line quite simply, and it's actually in article number 2. So I'm going to read that one to you as well. Is that okay, Ryan?
Totally, totally.
Article number 2 says, um, it's simply don't discriminate. These rights belong to everybody, whatever our differences. Don't discriminate. See, that I think is where the line gets crossed sometimes. And people are totally welcome to disagree with me on this, but if you're trying to balance the difference between respecting someone's religious beliefs and preventing them from spreading their religious beliefs in a way that you feel is harmful to others, right? Like, let's say that your religious belief is to do human sacrifice. Okay, so where do we draw the line, right? Well, do not murder. You know what I mean? Like, you can sacrifice yourself. Like, I don't know what to say, right? Like, I'm sorry, your right to swing your hand, your fist ends at my nose, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's kind of where it ends. So you have the right to express your opinion per Article 19. You can express your opinion about anything, but you can't discriminate. Do you see the difference? And
amen.
it's a very fine line. And I understand. I have a lot of compassion for the fact that people regularly cross this line, emotions run high. They start running their mouth, probably more than they even really mean to. But if we take a look at your book, Ryan, right, there's a difference as well between voicing your opinion in an effort to do good and voicing your opinion because you're just making some dirty money. And I think that that's really also where human rights get trumped on quite often, is in the pursuit of wealth, and extraordinary wealth. We all have the right to make a living, but we don't have the right to garner wealth outside the norm and for solely through the discrimination and chomping on of everybody else's rights. And that's
Yeah,
really where that line is. I don't think any of us would disagree that that line should never be crossed.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I completely duplicate that, and I
Yeah.
actually understand it a lot. And
I know you do.
yeah, I mean, the stuff that I go through on a daily basis is the stuff that you go through
Sure.
on a daily basis.
Right.
With educating and making people aware of their human rights. Not a lot of people actually know their human rights. I mean,
Right.
there's like 30 human rights people need to,
Yep.
that probably half of them don't even know,
Right. Yeah,
more than
it's
half. I
true.
mean,
Like,
it's
did you,
sad, but we're
like, just
doing
looking
this.
at, I'm sorry, Ryan, not to interrupt you, but did you know that one of your human rights is the right to public assembly? Like, look at everything that's going on right now. That human right has been completely taken away from 99% of the population of Earth right now. We do not have the right to public assembly. And it is a human right. I'm not saying that we should all run around and get each other sick, but I am saying that we should be aware of the fact that that's a human right and insist upon it being given back to the people the moment this emergency ends.
Oh, completely,
Yeah,
completely. And it's funny how you brought that up, because not a lot of people, not to get into politics at all, because this is
right.
definitely not a political
Political.
live, right? But
Yeah,
I do want to say that um, there are some individuals that have taken this situation into their own hands and
Right.
pushed things that do violate our rights completely.
Yeah,
People taking away our
absolutely.
Second Amendment, which is
Yeah.
a right that we have in the Constitution in America, and that's
Mm-hmm.
one of our rights, and it's one of our God given rights. But there's also things like um, you know there's
Yeah,
another
there's an
instance where
abortion
social
bill.
media is censoring people, like it's
Yeah,
just not cool,
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why I say that education is really where this part of where the solution begins. It's not the where the solution ends. Education alone won't get us there, right? But education is really where it begins, because if we all knew that those were human rights, if everyone was aware of the fact that they have a right to life and, a right to protect themselves and a right to a freedom of expression and all of these things, which some of these in America we completely take for granted, and a lot of other countries they don't have those, which is probably why I have a harder time recruiting. I'm sorry, people who are American like me, I'm sorry to have to say this, but I have a lot harder time recruiting volunteers right here in Oregon than I do in all the other chapters I have around the world. Senegal, Congo, Nigeria, Rwanda, these African countries, I plant a seed and I sprout like a weed that will not stop growing. but here in America, we get quite complacent sometimes, and I think that that's actually more deadly, because when you know that if you give up your rights you could starve tomorrow, you're a lot more likely to hold on to them, I think, than here in the US, where we see a right being chomped on and we think, well, that's not me, it's not affecting me today, and so it's okay. And that's a deadly opinion, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I like that. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've experienced that as well, but I think you're really doing a good job in showing us how it's like an example that you're giving us, where you're setting an example throughout the world. Really, I mean, you're like
Thank
an
you.
international human rights girl. It should
Right.
be international human rights girl. I mean, honestly, for
Thank you.
real. But you're showing us an example of actually applying the what it actually needs to occur in human rights awareness, and you're showing
Sure.
us how that is in other countries, and you're
Right.
showing us the need for that. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that America is all that in a bag of chips, because we have our downfalls,
Sure.
we have
Right.
our holes, we have our there's stuff happening underneath our nose that we don't even know about.
Right.
So
Right.
it's kind of that awareness that we need to get into, and that kind
Yeah.
of we need to get out of our comfort zones a little bit and
Yep.
do what needs to be done, because yeah, we can sit at home all the time and watch TV, or play video games or whatever, but that's not going to handle the human rights situation that's happening right now.
That's
And you
right.
know that, and Youth for Human Rights knows that.
Right.
And and these entities and these individuals like you are pushing that out and being that example and putting that example there that not many people actually have in their lives, because we're positioned, or we're grooved into this example of just working 24
Right.
24/7, and
Right.
we're told that we need to do this or do that, otherwise something bad will happen.
Right.
um, and that's just also a violation of your human rights too, because
Yeah.
nothing bad should happen to you. So it's like, what
Yeah.
is happening? So we have so many different ideas put in ourselves, put in our minds and our universes, that we have to understand that yes, it may look great right now, but what's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen in the future? And that's
Right.
why you're here.
Right. Yeah. And actually, to prove the point you just made, one of your human rights is also the right to play.
There you
So
go.
there
There
you
you
should
go.
be able to, relax and recreate safely. And that is something that we need to protect as well. So,
Exactly.
okay, I think you had other questions. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Oh, we just got off track, so it's all
I
good.
know. Whew, we diverted.
So, how do you use your right to freedom of religion?
How do I use my right? Well, I attend church every week.
I mean, there's
Yeah,
that.
no. I mean, okay, so let's talk about what a right is. Like what is a right? A right is something that you have inborn as something you are able to do. Doesn't mean you have to do it, right? It's not Rights are not obligations. just because I have religious beliefs doesn't mean I have to practice them. I have that right too. But so how do I use my right to religion? I use my right to religion every single moment. Like every time I breathe, I believe myself to be a spiritual being. I believe myself to be more than just, flesh, flesh and bone. And so every moment that I live, I am exercising my human right to religion. But I think it's more important. I think really the question is more, how do I use the right to religion or to religious belief for other people, right? Like any person can practice that right on themselves. It's another thing to practice that right for other people. And I'll give you a great example of this. I'm part of a writing group, and I was invited a couple months back now, 2019. I was invited to an event for writers. We all got together, and I happened to mention my religious beliefs to someone in the room, and they just started trashing my religion.
Jeez.
And for a moment, like I'm a respectful and polite person most of the time, and I didn't want to make waves. And so at first, I tried to just kind of acknowledge what they said and water off a duck's back, right? Like who cares? But it was ceaseless. It did not stop. So finally, I just stood right up and told him exactly what I felt. And what was funny is I really considered in that moment that I was probably going to have a verbal fight on my hands. And I was kind of gearing up internally. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right? Like I was kind of gearing up internally, like letting it all kind of stir and fester and like, okay, I'm ready. Give
Yeah,
me
it's
what you
really
got,
hard to hold yourself back when you're at that stage. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, I'm about
Exactly. I was
to.
like, I'm gonna own you. No, but and I was ready. I was like internally completely ready to take this guy on verbally and just decimate him because I knew that everything he was saying was total trash, right?
Yeah,
But here's what happened. Here's what happened, and this I think speaks better to actual humanity than most because the moment I let it come out of my mouth, the moment it came out of my mouth, you know what? You're talking about my religion. He said, like, I could see, like, suddenly he just, oh, he just suddenly realized he was not talking about this nebulous evil thing over there in the shadows. He was talking about something that I know and breathe and see every single day of my life. And I could see that, like, suddenly his mind opened just a crack and he was willing to hear what I had to say. And I didn't try to proselytize to him. I wasn't trying to like convert him. I simply told him, look, what you just said, this, and this are totally not true. What you just said, this is actually, there is some grain of truth to that. Let me tell you the actual story of what really happened. You know what I mean? I just kind of gave him like all the pertinent information. And at the end, what was so funny is he asked for a tour of my church.
there you go.
Yeah.
Even
And I
when
was
you
like,
think,
wow.
oh, lost.
I wasn't even trying to go there. I was just trying to like, get him to pay attention. But I think that that's really that more than anything else taught me that moment, and 1,000 more like it have taught me that freedom of religion is not the freedom to trump others with your religion. Freedom of religion is simply, it's a holiness. It's a dignity in your own heart and in your own soul. And it's something you can grant to others. I granted him the right to believe what he wanted to believe, but I drew a line in the sand and said, your right to believe stops about 2 feet away from me. And because he's a human being and I'm a human being, we were able to come to a place in the middle where he actually respected me enough to want to come take a look for himself. And that's all I think any of us can really ask of another, is just come take a look for yourself. And that's actually, Ryan, why I love your book so much, because they push that same message of just take a look at the truth for yourself. Don't let some celebrity or some guy who has like his own axe to grind tell you what you think about someone else's religion.
I love that.
Thank you.
I
It's the
completely do.
truth.
I
Yeah.
actually like wanted to put up on the screen like hashtag truth, but I don't think I can, but I think that's awesome. Like, I really do.
We'll all envision it for a second.
There you go. Just like picture it, guys. Picture it.
There you go. Hashtag truth.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, you got to, anybody who's watching, you got to understand that point really like solid is, you have to understand people will come up to you and they will, Sarah will agree because she just shared with you one of the instances. But you have to understand not a lot of people are going to understand what you believe in or understand what you do. And they're going to assume, like
Right.
immediately they're going to assume. And that's what you got to do is you got to make sure that is it actually an assumption or is it something that they heard, right? And you have to actually kind of figure out what that is and then go, okay, cool, pick out that one or pick out that one and just knock it down with your own communication. And don't be afraid to do that because you have the right to freedom of speech.
That's right.
Right. So there's that, and I completely agree with Sarah on that, and I really do appreciate you plugging in the books. That was really really cool of that.
Thank you. Take a bow.
Yeah, it's like woo!
Buy Ryan's books.
Woo! Youth for Human Rights.
Woo! Ryan, my phone is telling me that it's short on battery. So if you lose me, I highly apologize. I've had an amazing time today. But let's try to do at least one more question.
Yeah, let's do one more question and then we'll kind of end it off,
Okay.
But we'll have to continue. I'll have to do another live with you soon. I think it'll be cool.
That sounds great. Sounds like a lot of fun.
When I send you a charger because I got to send you a lightning cable.
Yeah, there you go.
So I can keep up,
That's right.
So how is human rights awareness going in Sierra Leone and the other areas that you stated? And I think your other live before this live, which before that other live, a whole entire mess. But how is that going?
Yeah, so it's actually going great. It's going fantastic. Now, of course, right now, with social distancing being a situation worldwide, a lot of my volunteers are hunkering down. They're taking care of themselves, taking care of their families. And we are focusing right now on fundraising because a lot of those guys, when they're not like Americans where we have a good support system here. In a lot of those countries, if you don't work, you don't eat. So, we're kind of balancing that right now among getting Youth for Human Rights booklets out to the country is still a priority, but really feeding people is the kind of the priority right now. That being said, however, even in times like these, and I would say especially in times like these, people's focus turns to what can I do to be causative over my life? And that is something I think that Youth for Human Rights really shines in because a lot of these countries do not have strong governments that are human rights focused. They're not focused on the rights of their people. And that's really sad. But as an individual in those countries, something you can do about it is spread these booklets. And so I have 9 different chapters in Sierra Leone alone in their different provinces. We also, just in the last 26 hours, we've had 3 more people from different countries reach out saying they want to start their own chapter. One in Haiti, one in Nigeria, and the other one was in... I can't remember. Sorry, guys.
You're all over the place. Awesome.
So we have 7 countries right now, plus those 3 more that just reached out. So we're really spreading the message strongly. Obviously, I'm not the only one. I'm not the owner of Youth for Human Rights. I haven't started it, but I am passionate about this subject. And I am very proud of the fact that I've been able to open that many chapters and I sponsor them. I help promote them. As you may know, your listeners may not, I'm a graphic designer and I'm a marketing expert. So, I help them to create their own logos and create their own groups, and they get the special t-shirts and we get the message out. And we're finding enormous reach, enormous numbers of people are really, really excited to have these booklets and just have the opportunity to do something about the situations that they're seeing in their own countries, which, to be honest, in a lot of cases, they're telling me stories that are really humbling and really, really, I'll tell you one more story, Ryan, before I go. I was at Chipotle the other day. I'm a big fan. Chipotle, I love you guys. And and they were out of steak. And that's the only thing I ever want. I don't like chicken. I don't like anything else on my burrito. I only want steak. And the girl was just devastated because I come in there all the time and she knows me. She's like, Sarah, I'm so sorry, but with everything that's going on, our supply lines are being cut and we don't have steak. And I think she was kind of expecting me to be kind of huffy or upset about it. And I just looked at her and I said, you know what? In the last 4 or 5 hours, I've sent over $500 in donations to my various different Youth for Human Rights groups because one of my volunteers actually messaged me privately and said, Sarah, we need help. He is a father, he is a teacher, and he was rummaging through the trash cans for food for his students and his family. And I just went, that's it. And, you know, Ryan, I really think that that is a message that people need to understand. When I say human rights, I'm not talking about gay rights. You know, I have a love here in Portland for people of other genders, and I am totally okay with that. But I'm sorry, I'm talking about starvation. I'm talking about slavery. I'm talking about, you know, enforced prostitution. When I talk about human rights, I'm not talking about, oh darn, I can't go to the beach today.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking about real human rights situations and real human rights violations that we are actually doing something effective about in these countries. And that is why I spend every extra dollar I have. And that is why I fundraise. And that is why I put on this shirt. And that is what this shirt means to me. So I really think that the expansion is great, and, you know, getting the booklets out is great. And, you know, we can get very excited about the booklets, but at the end of the day, it's how many lives did we save? How many children are growing up knowing it's not okay to do those things? You know, that is what I'm looking for as far as a metric, as far as a KPI for how well we're doing.
I love that completely. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's definitely super important. And you
Yeah,
know, yeah, don't yeah, we're not getting hooked up in the small problems. We're talking about the huge problems that we, as a country and as a whole entire nation in the world, we all
that's
put
right.
money towards it, and a bunch. We throw money at it, and it still doesn't handle. And
Yeah,
it's definitely something that what you said is actually handling those situations and making sure that people aren't starving. People have
that's right.
shelter. The homeless population is growing, and
Yeah,
it's definitely not sane, and it
that's
shouldn't be
right.
that way. And
That's
that's
right.
definitely another thing we need to handle. And
That's right.
based on what you said, I think basically people need to understand is that when they see somebody out on the street, they see somebody that needs food, water, supplies, anything, help them with it. Even
That's
just
right.
one person is better than
That's
not
right.
helping at all.
That's right. Yeah, and support groups that are doing something about it. Like, you know, I'm well aware of the fact that the homeless population also tends to have major mental health issues and major drug and alcohol issues. And so giving them cash may not be the right thing. But there are groups like Good Neighbor Center. Shout out to Good Neighbor Center here in Tigard, Oregon. They get homeless families off the street. They put them through a system that actually gets them into housing and gets them a job and helps them with their mental health issues and helps them with all the things that they run into, gets them off drugs, gets them off of all the stuff that's happening in their lives so they can actually become stable. So, you know, there are groups out there. And again, you know, I'm on the board of directors for Girls Be Girls Not Mother in Africa, where we're taking these young girls who are being essentially sold into marriage with men sometimes 10, 20 years older than them at the age of 8 or 9, because their families can't afford to feed them, right? Like, we're taking these girls, we're putting them back in school. So there are groups that are doing something about it. And if you feel like walking around in a blue t-shirt and passing out booklets is not your thing, then find one of these groups that's doing something about it and be willing to put your donations towards that, even in times like these. I mean, Ryan, you know me, I'm not wealthy. I'm not sitting here in a big fancy house, right? But when I do have extra money, it goes towards those activities because that's the world I want to live in. I don't want to live in a world that looks like it does today. And the only one who's going to do something about it is me. Then I'm going to do something about it.
I love that completely. So
Yeah.
I want to end it so that your battery doesn't go fully dead.
Thank you.
So here's what I want to do is I want to have people go straight to you to get information and help,
Sure.
and also help you.
Thank you.
So one thing I want to do is I want to see what website they can go on to help girls be girls.
Not
The E
mothers.
movement, whatever
Yep.
that is, it's amazing, and it needs to
Thank
be
you.
supported completely. So
Thank you.
plug it on
Yeah,
in.
so
Tell us what to do.
good. Yeah, so my website is sarahnicolenadler.com. That's my name. Sarah, Nicole Nadler, and like Nancy, Adler.com. So Sarah Nicole Nadler. If you go to sarahnicolenadler.com/help, you will find my human rights activities and the option to donate towards one of these different activities. You can also message me right here on Facebook. I'm here almost every day. And I'd be more than willing to help you set up your own Youth for Human Rights chapter. But really, if you're looking to do something with that, I recommend going directly to youthforhumanrights.org, and they'll send you free materials. It's all donated. You'll get the t-shirts, you'll get the cool hats, you'll get everything, and you can start getting your family and friends and your community involved.
Amazing. Awesome. So
Yeah,
you can go ahead and send me that the website.
will
I
do.
think I remember it, but I want to make sure I have the spelling correctly. And then I'll put it in
Sure.
the live right afterwards so that it's
Awesome.
there so that people can see it. I do want to thank you very, very much for taking the time to do this. I do know you have a busy, busy, busy day.
Yes.
And I do know that you have a, amazing, amazing, amazing life that you're just helping amazing amount of people.
Thank
And I
you.
wanted to thank you. And I don't think I've actually said that in person, but I maybe have before. I
I
just
think
wanted
you
to
have.
thank you for being there and for being
Thank
there
you.
and actually doing what needs to be done and really just being there for everybody, regardless of where you are or what you're doing, just being there and helping people. I think that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan. It was great talking to you guys.
Hey, it was great talking to you too. Alrighty,
Bye.
guys. Thank you so much.
Bye
Have a nice
bye.
one. Bye.